We begin this very bulletin this evening with some quick headlines as to what's developing where across the world. Let's take a look. In another shocking case in Tamil Nadu, a man attempted to sexually assault a female police officer at a railway station. The officer was returning home after her shift when the incident occurred. Special People's Representative Court adjourned Muda scam case until February 24, directing the Karnataka Lokayukta to submit a report within a week. Shubhendu Adhikari, the leader of the opposition in the West Bengal Assembly, along with 3 other BJP MLAs, suspended from the ongoing budget session on Monday for alleged unruly behavior inside the House. Prayagraj Sangam railway station has been temporarily closed amid heavy crowd during the Mahakumbh Mela. Passengers scheduled to board trains from this very station will now need to travel to Phaphamau railway station. Cleanup of Yamuna begins in Delhi following BJP's historic poll victory, according to a statement from the Lieutenant Governor's office. A 4-pronged strategy has been put in place to address pollution. An earthquake with a magnitude of 4.0 strikes New Delhi NCR at 5:36 a.m. this morning, with the epicenter being located in Thola Kuan. An earthquake is also reported from Siwan in Bihar. Family of 4 was found dead in their apartment in Vishwesharya Nagar, Mysuru on Monday, according to the police. Incident is under investigation. Supreme Court issues notice to Uttar Pradesh government officials for demolishing a mosque in Kushinagar, allegedly violating its November 13, 2024 order that prohibits demolitions without prior notice and hearing. Sam Pitroda's remark that China is not the enemy sparks row, with BJP accusing Rahul Gandhi of sharing similar views. With that, we in fact proceed with this bulletin, with our focus being on the international arena. French President Emmanuel Macron is convening an emergency meeting of European leaders, including UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, amid growing concerns over Donald Trump's attempts to dominate the Ukraine peace process. Now, the meeting, likely to be held in Paris today, will address Europe's exclusion from US-led negotiations, Ukraine's future NATO membership, and security guarantees for Kyiv. Let's take a look at this report to understand this in greater details.
Hastily arranged meeting comes after US officials suggested French President Emmanuel Macron will host European leaders, including Britain's Prime Minister, on Monday for an emergency summit on the Ukraine war. The hastily arranged meeting comes after U.S. officials suggested Europe would have no role in any talks on ending the conflict. Leaders from Germany, Poland, Italy, as well as NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa from the European Union are expected to be at the summit.
The United States really is the big question mark at the moment.
Political scientist and Bertelsmann Stiftung executive board member Daniela Schwarzer spoke to Reuters about the shifting power dynamics.
We see that the United States wants to retreat from international organizations, so it is weakening structures of international order.
U.S. President Donald Trump stunned European allies last week when he announced he had a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin and would start a peace process. Trump's Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg said on Saturday that Europe would not have a seat at the table for Ukraine peace talks. Washington had sent a questionnaire to European capitals last week asking what they could contribute to security guarantees for Kyiv and what the size of any European-led force might be, according to a document seen by Reuters. That's in addition to putting Ukraine leadership under pressure and asking for a deal on the country's rare earth minerals without any security guarantees. Schwarzer said it demonstrates the new approach by the Trump administration.
The message they are sending is that the United States is now the key player in the middle between the two conflicting parties and wants to bring this peace to an end without really wanting to be involved in the stabilization of the situation.
U.S. officials have insisted they will only settle for a durable peace deal and that Ukraine will be at the table. It was revealed later on Saturday that the U.S. and Russian officials will meet in Saudi Arabia in the coming days to start Ukraine peace talks. Dozens of similar summits have shown the 27-nation EU to be dithering, disunited, and struggling to come up with a cohesive plan to end the Ukraine war. Some countries were unhappy that the meeting was only for selected leaders and not a full EU summit, EU officials said. The French presidency sought to assuage those misgivings, saying Monday's meeting could lead to other formats.
Now, Poland's Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski warned that Trump's approach, which is described as reconnaissance through battle, requires a united European response. Starmer, in fact, emphasized the need for Europe to take a greater role in the NATO. Now, the urgency reflects European fears that Trump may negotiate a ceasefire without their very input, leaving Europe to enforce a deal it didn't shape. U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg dismissed European involvement, urging leaders to focus on concrete proposals and increase defense spending instead. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has urged Europe, on the other hand, to form its own army. Meanwhile, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock stressed the need for European unity. As U.S. and Russian officials meet in Saudi Arabia, European leaders are racing to solidify their stance, with Poland's Donald Tusk warning Europe urgently needs its own plan of action, or else other global players will be deciding the future. Now, in a significant shift from the previous policies, Trump administration officials are preparing to meet with Russian officials in Saudi Arabia to initiate talks aimed at ending the ongoing war in Ukraine. Now, this marks a departure from the Biden administration's hesitancy to engage in Moscow on the very conflict. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has in fact arrived in Riyadh as part of his first West Asia trip, which follows a recent phone call between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The call, which reversed years of U.S. policy, resulted in both leaders agreeing to begin negotiations immediately. Now, Trump also spoke with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, though details on Ukraine's role in the talks still remain unclear. While Ukrainian officials have expressed concerns about being excluded, President Zelenskyy has reiterated that Ukraine will not be accepting any agreements made without their involvement. In fact, European governments have similarly called for a seat at the negotiating table, as we were just mentioning in our previous stories. Key figures in the upcoming talks will include U.S. officials such as Rubio, Representative Michael Waltz, and West Asian envoy Steve Witkoff, while Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is expected to lead the Russian delegation. Saudi Arabia, which will be hosting and mediating the discussions, is set to play a central role in shaping the outcome of these crucial negotiations, with their national security advisor leading their team. These talks are scheduled to begin on February 18, 2025. Now, as we speak of this very particular talk that is to take place in Saudi Arabia, let's also take you through the Ukrainian president and what he is in fact going to be doing. Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived in UAE with First Lady Olena Zelenska for an official visit on Sunday. Now, the president met UAE officials upon his arrival in the country already. Zelenskyy is in the UAE for a humanitarian visit. He has no plans to meet with Russian or US officials there. Zelenskyy has said that their top priority is bringing more of their people home from captivity. The trip, in fact, comes directly after Zelenskyy's appearance at the Munich Security Conference and kicks off a regional tour that includes official visits to Saudi Arabia and Turkey. Meanwhile, Ukraine has not been invited to talks between the US and Russia aimed at ending war in Ukraine. The US Special Envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, had said Kyiv would be involved in Monday's talks in Saudi Arabia, but the source said no delegation would be present. On the other hand, Zelenskyy has also said that he would not accept any deal struck without his country's input. Ukrainian president called for a European army, saying Europe cannot rely on Washington. Moving on, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he believes he would meet very soon with the Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. Now, addressing the reporters after the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio earlier sought to temper expectations of a swift end to the conflict, Trump expressed confidence that Putin wants an end to the war. Let's listen in to what exactly was said by the U.S. President.
I think he wants to stop fighting. I see that. We spoke long and hard. Steve Witkoff was with him for a very extended period, like about 3 hours. I think he wants to stop fighting. They have a big, powerful machine, you understand that. And they defeated Hitler and they defeated Napoleon. You know, they've been fighting a long time. They've done it before. And but I think he would like to stop fighting.
Now, neither Ukrainian nor European officials are participating in the talks in the Saudi Arabian capital Riyadh, though Rubio on Sunday has stressed that Ukraine and Europe would both have to be involved in any real negotiations that result from this very meeting. Next up, in a significant escalation of military support, Israel has received a shipment of heavy Mk-84 bombs from the United States following a recent decision by President Donald Trump to lift a blockade imposed by the previous administration. Now, the Israeli Defense Ministry has announced that the shipment arrived at Ashdod port late Saturday night, February 15, that is, and was swiftly unloaded and transported to the Israeli Air Force base. Now, what exactly is the Mk-84? Mk-84 is a powerful unguided bomb weighing around 2,000 pounds, known for its devastating impact and wide blast radius. This particular shipment includes approximately 1,600 of these munitions, which had previously been held up due to concerns from the Biden administration about their potential use in densely populated areas like the Gaza Strip. The Biden administration had in fact paused the delivery of these very bombs amid the fears of exacerbating civilian casualties during the ongoing conflicts. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz in fact welcomed the arrival of the munitions, describing them as significant asset for the Air Force and the IDF, and expressed gratitude for the unwavering support from the United States government. Now, this arms shipment comes at a time of heightened tensions in the region, with reports suggesting that Israeli military may be preparing for renewed offensives in Gaza should ceasefire negotiations with Hamas falter. Now, Israel and the United States are determined to thwart Iran's nuclear ambitions and its influence in West Asia. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said after meeting U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Let's take a look at what exactly was the conversation on and how the developments and implications have turned out to be.
Israel and America stand shoulder to shoulder in countering the threat of Iran.
Speaking after their meeting in Jerusalem on Sunday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu presented a united front on Iran.
We agreed that the Ayatollahs must not have nuclear weapons. And we also agreed that Iran's aggression in the region has to be rolled back.
The common theme in all of these challenges is Iran. It is the single greatest source of instability in the region.
Iran says it's enriching uranium for peaceful purposes. It has backed groups across the Middle East that describe themselves as the axis of resistance to Israel and U.S. influence in the region. That includes Hamas, the Hezbollah movement in Lebanon, and the Houthi movement in Yemen. Iran denies that it closely directs its proxies in their attacks, saying that they act on their own initiative. Over the 16 months since the Gaza war started, Israel has assassinated top leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah. Israel and Iran have exchanged limited retaliatory attacks. Israel launched its assault on Gaza after Hamas fighters stormed southern Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking more than 250 hostages. According to Israeli tallies, more than 48,000 people have been killed in Gaza, according to Palestinian health officials. Much of the enclave has been laid waste, and most of the territory's 2.3 million pre-war population has been displaced multiple times, humanitarian agencies say. Netanyahu thanked Rubio for backing Israel's policy in Gaza. He said Israel and the U.S. under President Donald Trump shared a common strategy in the Palestinian enclave, where a fragile ceasefire is in effect. Israel took delivery of a consignment of Mk-84 heavy bombs Saturday after Trump lifted a block placed on them by the previous administration of President Joe Biden. Later on Sunday, Netanyahu again praised U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to resettle Palestinians from Gaza.
Give them a choice, not forcible eviction, not ethnic cleansing.
Trump's call for Palestinians to emigrate from Gaza, including to Egypt and Jordan, has been widely condemned. Some critics say that amounts to ethnic cleansing. Trump has said that he wants the U.S. to take ownership of Gaza and rebuild it into the Riviera of the Middle East. Arab states are working to present an alternative vision for Gaza. The White House is still working on extending the 42-day ceasefire into a second phase. Trump's special Mideast envoy said Israel's cabinet is due to meet on Monday to discuss the issue.
Next up, U.S. President Donald Trump reiterated his, in fact, support for Israel's actions in Gaza. What exactly has he said to reiterate his points? Trump said that he told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do whatever you want regarding the ongoing negotiations for hostage releases between Hamas and Israel. Now, Hamas had released 3 hostages on Saturday before a key deadline. Trump added that the next steps would be up to Israel, but with a consultation from the U.S. president himself. The proposal, which includes potential immigration to Egypt and Jordan, has drawn accusations of ethnic cleansing. Trump, however, stands firm on his vision, stating that he aims for the U.S. to take ownership of Gaza and transform it into the Riviera of the West Asia. Let's listen in to what he had to say on this.
I told Bibi, you do whatever you want because, my statement was they got to come back. Now, the reason I made that statement because they said they weren't going to deliver, they were not going to deliver the people that they said they were going to deliver, that they agreed to deliver. And they did agree to do that, but they broke that agreement. When I made the statement, they delivered everybody plus an American. Now, the good news is they look like they're in pretty good shape because the people from the week before didn't look like they were in good shape. They looked like Holocaust survivors, frankly. Horrible. Whatever happened to them was horrible. But that'll be up to Israel what the next step is, in consultation with me, through strength. You understand that, right? It's called peace through strength. They contracted for those weapons a long time ago in the Biden administration, and then Biden wouldn't deliver the weapons. But I look at it differently. I say peace through strength. They were sitting there. Nobody knew what to do with them. They bought them. But I believe in that very strongly.
Moving on and now coming closer to India itself, that is in the neighboring country of Bangladesh. Major arrests in Bangladesh taking place following last year's student-led uprising that toppled Sheikh Hasina's 16-year-old. Now, authorities have arrested 41 former police officers among over 1,000 accused of committing atrocities during the 2024 protests. The mass movement began as an anti-discrimination student protest but escalated into a nationwide revolt, leading to Hasina's resignation and escape to India. Among those arrested, 2 former police chiefs and senior officers from Dhaka and Chattogram. Some top officials remain fugitives, with reports suggesting they may have fled the country as well. Highest number of cases, 174, were filed against former Dhaka Police Commissioner Harunur Rashid, while ex-IGP Al Mamun faces 159 cases. A UN report has said that security forces use systematic and widespread extrajudicial killings as a part of a coordinated crackdown. Report states that security forces deliberately targeted unarmed protesters, often using lethal force at point-blank range. Moving on, in a recent United Nations report, revelations have been made, and alarming ones at that, detailing out activities of terror groups like the ISIL, Daesh and the Al-Qaeda in India and Afghanistan. Now, UN's Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team, in their 35th report, have highlighted that the ISIL or the Daesh was unable to carry out large-scale attacks in India. However, its handlers attempted to incite lone actor attacks through India-based supporters. The pro-ISIL media outlet Al Jawhar has in fact continued spreading anti-India propaganda through its publication Sirat-ul-Haq. The report also sheds light on the growing threat posed by ISIL-K, that is Islamic State, Khorasan province in Afghanistan. Despite the Taliban's efforts, ISIL-K remains a significant threat to the region and beyond. ISIL-K has maintained its presence across Central and South Asia, with Afghanistan serving as its main recruitment hub. The group has been recruiting Central Asians, particularly Tajik nationals, and moving fighters into Afghanistan through routes in Turkey and Iran. Now, high-impact operations, including suicide bombings, have been led by ISIL-K deputy Maulawi Rajab. Taliban's inability to curb ISIL-K's influence has raised concerns despite raids and counterterrorism measures. Now, ISIL-K also continues to exploit corruption and infiltration within Taliban ranks. The report also highlights the very strengthening of ties between Al-Qaeda and the Taliban as well. Al-Qaeda has in fact been consolidating its presence in Afghanistan, with the Taliban providing safe houses, training camps and financial support to them. Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, has also benefited from this very collaboration, establishing new training centers and enhancing recruitment. Now, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also called on member states to unite and prevent Afghanistan from becoming a hotbed of terrorist activities. Moving on, Rwandan-backed M23 rebels advanced on Sunday to the center of Bukavu in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, meeting little resistance from government troops, witnesses and the armed group said, as Congo accused Rwanda of ignoring calls for a ceasefire. More on this very matter in this report.
M23 rebels advanced into the heart of the Congolese city of Bukavu on Sunday, dealing a further blow to the government's authority in the country's east. The rebels are backed by neighboring Rwanda and have aimed to seize the commercial hub since taking the city of Goma in late January. However, on Sunday in Bukavu, there was little sign of the clashes and bloodshed that preceded Goma's capture, and people there said they had seen M23 troops passing unopposed through central districts since the early morning. Some even took selfies with the rebels and welcomed them with cheers and applause. This video, verified by Reuters, shows M23 fighters posing for photos in the provincial capital's central Independence Square. While the situation appeared largely calm, more verified footage showed smoke rising from Bukavu's central prison. The Democratic Republic of Congo's government confirmed rebels were in Bukavu and also accused Rwandan troops of entering the city. However, it stopped short of saying the city was fully under M23's control. M23 is a well-equipped group and the latest in a long line of ethnic Tutsi-led rebel movements to emerge in Congo's volatile east. But Rwanda rejects allegations from Congo, the United Nations, and Western powers that thousands of its troops are fighting alongside the Tutsi-led M23. It says it is defending itself against the threat from a Hutu militia, which it says is fighting with the Congolese military. The UN Refugee Agency on Friday described the situation as rapidly deteriorating and said it has already displaced around 350,000 people. M23's recent gains in the region mean it has captured more territory than all other rebellions since the end of two major wars that ran from 1996 to 2003. These advances have also handed them control of some of the region's valuable mineral deposits. Congo is the world's top producer of cobalt, a key component in batteries for electric vehicles and mobile phones.
Tragic incident that had in fact come in from Mali, where 43 people, most of whom were women, were killed after an artisanal gold mine collapsed in the western Mali on Saturday. Now, as we were mentioning, the victims had climbed into an open pit areas abandoned by the industrial miners to search for gold scraps when the earth suddenly started to give away and then ultimately ended up burying them. Now, the Mines Ministry spokesperson has confirmed that the accident took place between Kaniba and Dabia, but provided no further details as teams on the ground are still investigating this very matter. Artisanal mining is widespread across West Africa, driven by rising metal prices and demand. However, the lack of regulation and unsafe practices often lead to deadly accidents. Just last month, 13 artisanal miners, including women and children, were killed in a southwest Mali when a gold mine tunnel got completely flooded. Moving on, as per authorities, the Syrian asylum seeker suspected of carrying out a deadly stabbing rampage in Austria had sworn allegiance to Islamic State and was radicalized online. Here's a report on this horrifying incident that's taken place. Let's take a look.
A Syrian asylum seeker who is suspected of carrying out a deadly stabbing attack in Austria had sworn allegiance to the Islamic State. That's according to the authorities, who also said that the 23-year-old man had been radicalized online. Saturday's attack in the southern alpine town of Villach killed a 14-year-old boy. 5 other people were wounded, 3 of whom are in intensive care, according to the police. Authorities also added that more harm would have been done had it not been for another Syrian, a food delivery driver who saw the attacker and drove into him with his vehicle. During a press conference, Interior Minister Gerhard Kahner said officials should have greater powers to screen asylum seekers. He also said that there would have to be mass checks without cause in many areas, since the suspect had not attracted the authorities' attention. Police said that the man, who is being charged with murder and attempted murder, had recorded himself swearing an oath of allegiance to the Islamic State. IS has not claimed responsibility for the attack so far.
Moving on, Mohsin Hendricks, said to be the world's first openly gay Imam, was shot dead in South Africa. The 57-year-old cleric gained international recognition for challenging traditional interpretations of Islam and championing an inclusive faith. He ran a mosque in Cape Town for marginalized Muslims. Let's take a look at this very report to understand what exactly went down.
Mohsin Hendricks, said to be the world's first openly gay imam, was shot dead in South Africa on Saturday, according to local police. The 57-year-old cleric gained international recognition for challenging traditional interpretations of Islam and championing an inclusive faith. He ran a mosque in Cape Town for marginalized Muslims. Authorities reported that 2 unidentified assailants with covered faces fired multiple shots at the vehicle Hendricks was traveling in. The attack has sent shockwaves through the LGBTQ+ community and beyond, prompting calls for an investigation into the potential hate crime. Human rights activist Shoki Wafula Silas, originally from Uganda, is feeling the loss personally.
He was teaching people his teachings about faith, spiritual development of a human being, understanding your faith. That's why when you would go to the mosque, you find Christians in the mosque, find Muslims, you find people who don't belong to any community. But I was teaching them faith.
Despite South Africa's progressive constitution protecting LGBTQ+ rights, the country still faces high rates of discrimination and violence against the community.
Moving on, South Korea has suspended new downloads of the Chinese AI app DeepSeek over data privacy concerns. Now, despite the ban, shares of Chinese tech giant Tencent surged after announcing the plans to integrate DeepSeek into its messaging platforms. Now, the move highlights growing global scrutiny over AI and data security, even as major firms push forward with AI expansion. More about this on this very report.
New Chinese AI model DeepSeek is drawing concern and excitement depending on where you are.
딥시크 앱의 국내 서비스가
On Monday, South Korea's data protection watchdog said it was suspending downloads of the app. The regulator said it took action after DeepSeek admitted failing to take into account some rules on the protection of data privacy. Officials said downloads would be permitted again once the app was in compliance. There was no immediate comment from DeepSeek, but privacy protection has emerged as a key concern over the product. Italy's Data Protection Authority said last month that it had ordered DeepSeek to block its chatbot there over similar worries. Earlier this month, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said Beijing would never ask any company to collect or store personal data in breach of national laws. Meanwhile, DeepSeek continues to get a very warm welcome in its home country. Chinese tech giant Tencent saw its Hong Kong-listed shares up over 3% by mid-afternoon Monday. The jump came after it said it was testing integration of DeepSeek with its Weixin messaging app. Technology shares in Hong Kong have roared higher in recent weeks, in large part on optimism over the app. With its claim to beat or match Western rivals at a fraction of the cost, investors hope DeepSeek can boost China's whole tech sector.
Moving on, and now bringing you some news from the entertainment world. Papal's election thriller Conclave and period drama The Brutalist were the big winners at the BAFTA Film Awards on Sunday, winning 4 prizes each. Let's take a look at this report.
The BAFTA goes to Conclave.
Conclave, a thriller about scheming cardinals electing a pope, won top prize at the UK's BAFTA Film Awards on Sunday. Director Edward Berger led the acceptance speech.
We live in a time of a crisis of democracy, and institutions that are usually used to bring us together are used to pull us apart. And sometimes it's hard to keep the faith in that situation, but that's why we make movies, and that's why we really made this movie.
In addition to Best Film, Conclave led with 12 nominations.
Conclave!
It also won Outstanding British Film, Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Editing. Also winning 4 BAFTA Film Awards was The Brutalist, a tale about a Hungarian architect rebuilding his life in post-war United States. It won Best Director, Original Score and Cinematography, and Best Actor for its star, Adrian Brody.
This pursuit of leaving something meaningful, and I think that's something we can all relate to.
While Demi Moore was considered a frontrunner for Best Leading Actress for her work in body horror The Substance, in one of the surprises of the night, it was Mikey Madison who won the category, who in Sean Baker's Anora plays an exotic dancer who marries a Russian oligarch's son.
Thank you so much, Sean Baker. I just adore you.
Anora is seen as a strong awards season contender in the approach to next month's Oscars. So far, Anora has picked up wins at the Critics' Choice Awards, as well as the Producers and Directors Guild of America Awards. Meanwhile, early season frontrunner Emilia Perez picked up 2 BAFTAs, one in the film not in the English language category, and another for Zoe Saldana as supporting actress. That film's campaign lost steam after controversy surrounding cast member Carla Sofia Gascon. In recent weeks, she has apologized for past social media comments denigrating certain groups, including Muslims.